I feel bad that I am a lot more interested in Turtles comics, and none of you are. So here is an Handybook from 2005. We have the official Handybook to the Marvel Universe, Alternate Universes 2005. An almost great cover by Wallace Gromit. If it weren't for his elbow covering Cable Man's face, I would say a great cover. We have a compilation of characters, each representing an alternate universe. We have Superman from the Justice League's Earth up front, Spider-Man 2019, Spider-Woman, Spider-Pig, and so on. And this is probably the first good cover they have had for a Handybook since they brought them back in 2004. A lot of the ones from 2004 had covers by Sally LaRue, and then in 2005 they got Wallace Gromit to do a fair share of them. I also think that this, the premise and the objective here, I think most of you, even those who refuse to ride with the modern Handybooks, I think we can all agree as a thing, a Handybook cataloguing the major alternate realities is a great idea. It's similar to that weapons and equipment issue in a manner. There are, as this shows, about 3 dozen alternate realities worth profiling. And there's a lot more, as we will see in the appendix at the back. Here are our credits for the issue. I think everyone involved in the writing and research of these are great. We also have a short list of relevant profiles that are not in here but were in other Handybooks that they had done. We start with some Richard Maddock to bum us out. 1602. This was the one he began with a dedication saying, "Fuck you, Todd McFarlane." Oh, how the tables have turned there. I aggressively object to the bullshit he pulled with McFarlane. I have hated Richard Maddock from the moment I learnt of him. The first time I saw Richard Maddock was in Jonathan Ross's Steve Dittman documentary, and I clocked him for what he was immediately. There's a bit where he's pretending to cry over meeting Steve Dittman, and it's performative. It's all for the cameras. It's very clearly a sociopath pretending to have emotional responses. And then I read his comics and I realised what he was doing was... And this is a great way to spot a bad person in advance. Any writer or any artist who pretends to be like one of their characters, anyone who models themselves after one of their characters instead of the other way around, I guarantee you that is a bad person. 2020 AD. This is a year introduced in the 80s C3PO miniseries, home to Iron Man 2020. What's the deal with 2020 nowadays in the current comics? Because that year has been and gone. Does it still exist? This is a bad picture. It's a composite, it's a collage really, of a bunch of characters. It was too early in their life cycle for them to commission new art for the profiles, I think. There is in there a piece by Wallace Gromit, the Spider Girl at the side. I think that is new art. That's the Wallace Gromit bit. But it's a shame he couldn't do a full piece integrating the various things into one image. 2019 now, home of Spider-Man 2019 and a bunch of other things with 2019 on the end. One thing I appreciate, which some of you might have believed I would complain about, I think it was a good idea to index these under informal names. 2019, obviously. Everyone knows 2019. If you named this profile Earth 928, 95% of people wouldn't know what that was. There's a lot of this though, text pages with no images, and also the first 4 weren't lined up right at the printers, they were too low. 2019 again, but this was the reboot of 2019 that didn't take off. In 2004 they got Robert Kirkham, ex-friend of one of you. They got him to do 5 one-shots, maybe 6, that were revamping 2019. There was Unhumans 2019. There was Daredevil 2019. Punisher 2019. Black Panther 2019. All pictured here. The standout was Muti 2019, which was very Robert Kirkham. It was an original character, and it had shades of Invincible. It's the one to the left of Blue Balls' head. That character later appeared in some of his other Marvel runs too, like Spider-Man Team Up. The rest of the line never got mentioned ever again. 8162 AD. There is no fucking chance in hell that the human race will ever exist in the year 8162 AD. This is the reality of the Marvel UK title Dragon's Claws, which I know nothing about, but it was, for a time, also home to the original Deathly Head. It's not to be confused with the reality where Transformers happened, which was where Deathly Head was introduced. Deathly Head was transported to this reality after his adventures with the Transformers. I also think that he was shrunk down. He was sent here by Doctor Who, I believe. The majority of Deathly Head's original series also takes place in this reality. Double spread here of 2 excellent men futures. We have Cableman's future, which I truly consider the weakest part of Cableman as a character. And the art there is from the cover to Cableman issue 1, the first issue of his ongoing. And over here is one related to Mike Tyson, but not the one you're thinking of. In 1999, he had an ongoing where he was shunted to the future, and that was a clever reversal of his setup. He was now an excellent man from the past in a future that knows of him and his legend. It was a pretty good series that was cancelled at 16 or 17 issues. 2 of the 3 Counter-Earths. First is the iDigivolutionaries Counter-Earth, and there is an image from Marvel 2 for 163, the story where Moongarden gets spanked. Great story, that one. And here is the Heroes Reborn one. Comment down below if you know the 3rd Counter-Earth that they haven't included. It's a story I've talked about a few times, and recently, and it never actually gets a Handybook profile. It came in between these 2. Maybe I should talk about my idea that no longer works. Maybe another day. I think there's a profile for the Beyonders in one of these. From the pages of Albert Moore's and David Allen's Captain Britain, it is Mad Jim Jaspers's Crooked World. I need to reread that run. I read it far too early on to reckon with the scope. After Secret Wars and Secret Wars II, and a modern Captain America one, and maybe the modern Iron Fist one, the original Captain Britain omnibus was one of the first omnibuses I got. The one that just had the David Allen's run with the Albert Moore issues and whatnot. Days of Future Pants. They have recoloured the cover art, the art by Jason Byrne, but I think that would be from a trade. They probably didn't do it for this, I assume. And there's another picture of Wolfman, because he is all that matters in this world apparently. Not the giant centennials or the prison camps. Earth A. We looked at that story just over a year ago. This was one of the first alternate realities. It was the first one that featured variations on the Marvel characters themselves. Different versions of the characters we knew. Like, God. This and the Justice League Earth were the two original alternate realities, and then there was also Kronos' future, where that was presented as being the future until it was decided it was just a possible future. Earth Egg. We had the Earth Egg Captain America on the cover. Again, I wish they had commissioned new art for this. Many of these don't have a good overall image to represent them. Some of them do. None so far, really, but you'll see some coming up. Avatar's Covenant of the Shield. A very unimpressive miniseries that, for some reason, always seemed to be getting its importance overinflated by Handybooks and resources like that. It was a fantasy genre version of the Marvel Universe. Its real lasting impact is that I nicked a couple of names from it for characters. Here Comes Tomorrow. This one speaks to me. This is from Van Morrison's run. This was a Van Morrison story. A shame that the profile doesn't pick up on Apollyon being Phantomas. But Marvel editors and Excellent Men fans, they need Christopher Clairvoyant purple prose telling them straight up every single thing about a story. And here he is right here. This is better than anything Christopher Clairvoyant has ever written. Ugh. I despise this story. The Last Avengers story. Miserable mid-90s shite. The Mangaverse. Never read a single piece of this, but this was the baby of Marvel's current editor-in-chief, Akira Yoshida. Senpai Editor-in-Chief San. Finally, onto one with an image I would say is alright. McQuaid, Spider-Woman's reality. And the image is from the cover of Last Hero Standing #1. It shows a bunch of the McQuaid heroes. It's not ideal, because some notable ones are missing or at least cropped out, but it is a better image than a lot of these have had. Mutant Cross. There's a series that everyone forgot. This was an alternative reality title, Pillock in Another World. And when I was getting into comics, a lot of people were like, man, Mutant Cross was good. They need to bring that back. That world was so poppin'. And now not a soul mentions it. Not even the Dracula Storm. Here we go. A fantastic image for a profile. It is a Marvel Age cover, I think, by Ron French. The new Universe. It's got the big players there. Nightmask, Dup 7, Starland Vocal Band, Justice, Codename Spitfire, Kick-Ass Inc., Mark Az's Merc, Cyforce. None of it any good except for Dup 7. The confusingly named Other Earth, which is Kronos' future timeline, featured in many Avengers stories and a few Fantastic Force ones. The Reigning, I suppose you could say this one is a flavour of the month. It had only wrapped up a year or so earlier. This was the future where Thor took over Earth. The best part is he married Amanda the Enchanter, and the twist was she didn't ever do anything evil. She was just a good wife. Shadowline. This was one of their first attempts at another imprint. Its biggest thing being that it is where Terra Inc. originates. The character, Terra Inc. He started out in Shadowline, and then he randomly appeared in the proper Marvel universe. And this is the Justice League revamp, the bad revamp from the 2000s. I hated this. They tried to revamp Marvel's Justice League, and it was kind of like they wanted to do the automated version of Marvel's Justice League, and it was boring, it was going nowhere, it was very uninspired and dull. And there was a page, I think it was when they fucking introduced Wonder Woman, there was a page of Wonder Woman as a naked, wrinkled crone. It's something I would describe as a very unpleasant image. And do you see that sexy woman in a skirt there? Well, the joke's on you, because it's actually a naked, withered hag. Not a reality this time. We have the Captain Britain corpse, also from the Albert Moore run. By this point, stuff like that had been invalidated by the larger universe. Within Albert Moore's stories, they felt like an important part of mythology, but then they are diminished by being irrelevant forever after. Death Clock, the original, Luther Mandross. We're on to characters and things like that now. Profiles for characters from other realities. Not so much the worlds themselves. We've got Fantastic Force, +1. This was the debut issue of What If. What If number 1. What if Spider-Man joined Fantastic Force? They did a few sequels to that. None of them any good. The Gathereras from 90s Avengers, and the art is the cover to Avengers issue 355. The original Galactical Guardians have the longest profile in here. This clocks in at 3 pages. And the reason for that is because the art they have included, they have made it big. This is the cover art to the first issue of their ongoing in the 90s, and they have done a very sloppy job of removing copy at the top left. They have not bothered to put any stars into the area that they painted over. And despite it being 3 pages long, they don't show any other pictures of the different versions of the lineup. This is Kilroy, a character I basically know nothing about. He has cameoed in a few stories I've read, but I've not really cared enough to look into him. I know that he shares a timeline with the Galactical Guardians, who we just saw. And the main other thing I know is that one of his villains, a yellow alien called Scar, with a K, he is in the Kazar crossover Starburst. And there's some art credited to the completely wrong artist, and they have misspelt the wrong artist's name. I think they swapped this art out last minute. That would explain it. The art we have here, that is original Handybook art. And then we have a profile for Marvel's Justice League, as well as the pages at the back end also not being aligned correctly. It's because it's a wrap. If you don't know the magic of comics, that is printed as one. But with this profile, we have the crappy Alec Rose image, which has become one of the only images you ever see in relation to this team. This, or it'll be a Jorge Pereira one from Kurt Busey's run. They're the only images you ever see of Marvel's Justice League. And then our final profile is for Deja Thoris, who I called Red Sonja for all video. And that is some more ad Handybook art they have used. Oh, but they forgot the reality from What If 23. Nah, baby kicks, it's all here. Well, most of it is. We have an appendix listing well over 100 other universes. Ones that aren't quite substantial enough to get their own profiles. And there's this section which they never should have gotten rid of. This is like the references. This is the bibliography. It tells you where you can read about what you've seen profiled and significant issues related to it. Excellent section. There's the back cover listing the contents. What is your favourite alternate universe we have seen featured here? Now you might be wondering, well, where's Age of Armageddon? Age of Armageddon and the Ultimators universe both had their own Handybooks in 2005. The Age of Armageddon one takes the crown for the worst Handybook ever made. Anyway, I like to think that you see some worth in the idea, if not in the package itself. There are a lot of alternate universes, and cataloguing them like this feels like a natural progression of the original Handybooks. If Marky Mark G was still around, you could see him coming to the same conclusion about wanting to index all these worlds. It could be better, and these Handybooks did get better, so I think this one would be another important learning experience towards improvement. But I don't think this one is too bad. I'll give it 7 thumbs up.